Hi, good to see you again. The topic of this conversation is perceptual positions. So, NLP perceptual positions. There's first, second, and third. So, first position is where it's like you're actually in your own body, looking out of your own eyes, listening with your own ears, having feelings generated by your own sensory experience. It's the first position. Second position is where you step into the shoes of another and you look out of their eyes, listen with their ears, and you feel the feelings that they may be experiencing. So that's second position. And it's also known as empathy. And third position is where you shift yourself into like a dispassionate observer, where you're an observer to self and to other. So that's third position, being objective, whereas this is subjective. First, second, and third. So years ago, when I used to run meditation classes, some of the exercises I used to give to the participants was things like this. So what you do is you get a candle, you light a candle, and you imagine that you can actually float over into the candle flame. So you shift your consciousness into the position of the candle flame such that you are the candle flame, and you're able to look out from the position of being in the candle, have your ears and senses there, and get the experience of what it feels like. It feels warm and bright in this candle. And then you can also do a second position shift with anything. It's really good practice. So you might actually have a second position shift with a chair somebody could be sitting in, or a second position shift with a table, or it could be a second position shift with a tree. And you'll get people who do this. You'll get some environmentalists who step in. You can see they've actually stepped in and are identifying very, very strongly with a forest or a tree. And you could also do a second position shift with an ocean. I live near the coast, so it's quite easy to get this experience. But you imagine that you'll become one with the ocean. It's very different to identifying with something small when you identify with something big and something that's expansive. So then you imagine you can become one with the ocean. You're way out in the ocean, and from the ocean you can look back towards where you are actually in your office or your bedroom or wherever you actually are. And it also leads off into, like, it takes me off subject almost, but it's like from when you're in the ocean, you can be shifting your consciousness wherever you want to put it. You can put it into a fish or a shark or whatever, or you can go to the bottom of the ocean. So you're using your consciousness to explore the world. And you can do a second position shift with the moon. So you see the moon, and then you imagine that you move over into the position of the moon. You become one with the moon, and from the moon you're able to look out at the universe, and you look back towards planet Earth and see the blue planet down there, and then you can start focusing in, get a bit more detail, and until you get back to seeing yourself down there. So second position shifts, this is something which mystics and people in the spiritual area have explored for thousands of years. And then there's another way you can use your second position shift. So when I learned how to do psychic readings back in 1984, I learned from a fellow Osho Sannyasin who's now known as Jesse Green. And what we would do, we would have a group of people, about 12, 15 people in the room. And then we would choose one person to be the subject. And then the rest of us would then tune in to that person. We would tune into that person, and then we would describe our pickup. That is what the thoughts that came to mind. And so typically it would be, for some people it would be in pictures, for others it would be more auditory, and for others it would be more kinesthetic. And that was very useful because it meant that each of us was picking up on an aspect of that person's psychology or state of mind or health or whatever it actually was, and then we fed that back to the group. So we fed it back to the group what our understanding was. As I said, for some it would be pictures, some would be auditory, some would be feelings. We'd feed it all back to the group, and then we would get like a rounded experience of that person. And it was very, very accurate. And that was useful processes. Now, what we discovered, because it was a downside, because what most of us were doing was a second position shift. Like most of us were just intuitively stepping in to the other person's body. However, if that person happens to be sick or mentally deranged or dysfunctional in some way, you're actually picking that up, and you're actually learning at quite a deep level how to be like the other person. So doing a second position shift with another person can be useful if you really want to learn something about the person. So if you have like a role model, then you want to model those attributes and step into the person and really get a sense of what it's like to be the other person. If you just want to do a psychic reading, well, then you do it out. It's like you don't step in, you do your pickup from out here. And with sometimes it's like you really do want to step into the person's experience, but you only do it momentarily and step back out, which is how empathy should really work. If it's chronic, it becomes toxic empathy. Okay. So you get some people who sort of naturally empathize with the underdog, and it's a personality trait. And they're making decisions then based upon not based upon like facts and logic, but upon a value system around one up and one down, based upon the oppressor and the oppressed. And because that means that in some way you have to be able to determine whether the person is the oppressor or the oppressed. There's actually a process that actually occurs in your mind for you to do that. Now, cultural Marxism actually sorts people into victim groups. So cultural Marxism works upon their basic premises. There's two groups. You're either an oppressor or the oppressed. And then they have these ways of actually sorting people, determining which group you actually fit into. Which is really quite interesting, because you can see, like, if you want to pull cultural Marxism apart, you just got to go back up to how they do the process of oppressor and oppressed, and then just go a step higher and just pull it apart. So, okay, but sorting people into groups, oppressor and oppressed, fuels resentment. And it also indicates there's a value system that the person is using. Like, why would you want to actually to sort people into oppressor and oppressed? There has to be a reason for that, and you could explore that and map out the values, and then you could play with those values to build new understandings. So then we come back to our perceptual positions, first, second, and third. So first is here in the body, second position is identifying with something else or some other person or group, and third is where you're the observer. Now, awareness is the key, because you have to have the flexibility and the ability to be able to shift between first, second, and third. You have to have that flexibility, which is why I recommend that what you do is you practice stepping into the position of a candle flame, or the ocean, or the moon, or a tree, or a dog, or something like this. You practice doing it and practice stepping back into self. You practice stepping into the shoes of somebody else, and somebody else, and stepping back into self. You have to have this flexibility. Now, there's reasons for this. There's really two groups in the world. You could say you're either a predator or you're a prey. A predator or a prey animal. So you get like the lion and the rabbit, for example. Now, the predator and the prey, it links to the amygdaloid function, to the right side, amygdaloid function in the brain, the right amygdala, which is the fight or flight response. So if you go into predator mode, it's anger, aggressive, it's attack. But if you go into prey mode, it's like this. It's fear. It's protect. So that's the predator and the prey function. And so then you can come back to, say, perpetrator and victim. So you come back to perpetrator and victim. Now, but if you actually have, say you look at a lion. Let's say you get a little family of lions, whatever they call it. There's the big daddy lion with the great big beard, and then there's a beautiful lioness, and then there's all the little lion cubs, and they're all really cute. They're all beautiful, they're all loving, and most of us will probably find that we naturally do a second position shift. Our heart's open and we go, oh, beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. And then you put the lions aside, and then you get some rabbits. And then these little cute little rabbits, they're all soft and cuddly, and they're all jumping around, jumping on each other and all that sort of stuff. We go, oh, cute, cute, lovey. And we do a second position shift with the rabbits. But then the lion comes along, jumps on a rabbit, kills it and eats it. So then what do? Do you stay back here, like as an observer, or do you find yourself doing a second position shift with the lion or with the rabbit? Because one's an oppressor, one's an oppressed. One's the predator, one's the prey. One's the perpetrator, one's the victim. And and you could take, say, well, then you could, okay, lion and rabbit. And then then you see a video of somebody who actually goes, a human, who actually goes and shoots a lion. And we go, bad person, bad person. Who are we identifying with? Who are we doing a second position shift with? Same with foxes. We see lovely little foxes, little family of foxes. But then the foxes kill the rabbits. We go, oh, poor rabbits. Then you come back over here and you get people, or you get other animals attack the fox. And it's just like there's a process that we run. We have to make a decision on who is the predator, who is the prey, who is the oppressor, who is the oppressed. There's a process. It's based upon our values that we have in mind. And, if the situation changes, the victim can become the perpetrator. So you see this with like the anti-fascist protesters. So they claim to be for peace and love, yet they demonstrate violence. So they're out there protesting, saying they're protesting against this, this, and this, and this, and this, and yet and so they have a way to determine, to categorize people into oppressor and oppressed. They say, oh, those people are oppressors and we're on the side of the oppressed, and so therefore we're going to go out and protest violently and smash shop windows and beat people up with, baseball bats and stuff like that. But we're doing it because. And it's like, yeah, which one are you? Because, you shift the context. Which one are you? Are you the oppressor or are you the oppressed? Are you the perpetrator or are you the victim? And so you have to really think about that. And that's why awareness is really important, especially awareness of first, second, and third perceptual positions. Now, Jordan Peterson talks about tyrannical regimes, and I've heard him talk quite a lot about Hitler and the National Socialists and Stalin and Lenin and the International Socialists and Mao Zedong and the Communists and Pol Pot in Cambodia. And you get these people who are well-intentioned, and yet when you actually look at their behaviour, it's reprehensible. And we might go, well, I could never be like that. I would never be a tyrant. It's like, yeah, just look at the anti-fascists protesting in the West right now. So you've got to understand the perpetrator and the victim. And one way to do that is by practicing second position shifts so that it will build in new understandings. So it's like, and this is easy to do. This is not easy to do. And it takes courage. The ability to be able to step into the shoes of, say, Lenin or Stalin or one of his henchmen like Yashoda or Yashoda, Beer, those guys. To be able to step into the shoes of, it's really hard to say, like a mass murderer, a tyrant, and to understand how they think. And also then to be able to step back out and then step into the shoes of the victims and get an understanding of what it was like for them. So we need to be able to we have to have courage, we have to have awareness so that we can step into the shoes of these tyrants, step back out, so we can get like an understanding of what drives them. So that if anything like that should arise within ourselves, we can recognize it instantly, that there's a tyrant arising from within, and then we can learn how to subjugate it and how to moderate it. And you'll find that there are many people have actually taken this attitude. So you'll get like authors like Dostoevsky in his books like Crime and Punishment and the Brothers Karamazov, where what he does, it's like he's looking at a situation and he goes, how could it be that people be like that? So what he does, he actually steps in to the shoes, does second position shift, steps into the shoes of these different personality types, these different types of people. And then he sort of thinks it through. Because it's like he wants to get an understanding. It's like, how could someone do something like that? And the only way to really understand is by stepping into the shoes, is to really find out. And that's sort of, in a way, it's sort of risky because it means, well, you could be like that too. And perhaps deep within yourself, you are like that. But until you actually recognize it and harness it and take control, you don't really have power over yourself. Because as like Jordan Peterson has actually described what actually happened with the Nazis and with the Stalinists, they didn't just jump up and decide to go out and beat the shit out of people and torture them and kill them. There was a gradual indoctrination process in which they consciously played a part. So you need to be aware of when you are being led along that path, because awareness is the key. You have to be aware that you're leading along a path. If you've never sort of been on the path, then it's going to make it difficult to recognize. But if a way you've already explored it in your mind, then when someone actually starts leading you down that path to tyranny and despotism, you are able to recognize that and stop the process. And to finish this discourse or this discussion, it's just like, it's only by actually really getting to know the devil within do you get to know the God within. And when you think about, say, if you look back on the story of, say, Jesus going into the wilderness, and he has a very clear experience of devil and the God and godliness. There's two sides. He has an experience of both sides, and I've sort of read, like, neuroscientists map it out and talk about it's the deep experience of the right amygdala and the left amygdala, like the right amygdala being associated with devils and demons, and the left amygdala being associated with angels and love and God. And so it's like Jesus has that experience. And key to all of that is awareness. And it's the same with Buddha. Buddha has similar experiences where he has deep experiences of demon and devils, and deep experiences of godliness. Like there's two aspects, and then they get the balance. And it's like, for a society to function well, it takes two wings. Like, it takes two wings to fly. So you could say political left and political right. It takes those two wings. And so those on the left, because people are pretty hardwired to a certain degree. So people on the left still need to learn how to gain an understanding of what it's like and how to think if you're on the political right. And those on the political right really need to learn how to step into the shoes of the left and understand how the left think. And so in this way, they become much more balanced. And then our political system and our science becomes much more balanced, which is what I think most of us would agree with, hopefully. So that's the end of this this video. Be really interested to hear your comments. Please leave them in the comments below. If you like the video, give it a like, please. Share it with your friends. And I look forward to seeing you again. And remember to keep on challenging everything for the truth. I've spent my entire life doing that, and I would like to share some of my discoveries with you. Whether you're an atheist or believe in a higher power, my book on God is sure to get you thinking. And part and parcel of spirituality is learning how to work with your unconscious mind, such that you can quieten the mind and get yourself to sleep when you need to. And that includes the ability to banish bad habits like cigarettes, marijuana, alcohol, chocolate, and overeating. And as a foundation to a fulfilling life, I believe everyone needs to learn how to work with their unconscious mind, how to explore deep trance and states of deep meditation. If you want to connect, you can find me on Facebook at Abbey Eagle School of Meditation.